Welcome to my channel Accounting LA. In this video, I am going to explain all the conventions of accounting. We'll discuss all these conventions one by one. The very first convention is the convention of consistency. What the convention of consistency means? It refers to the practice of constantly applying the accounting methods and principles from one accounting period to the next. Convention of consistency says that we should apply accounting methods consistently from one accounting period to another. जो हमने एक बार accounting method follow कर लिया, that should be applied over the period and it should not be changed. This is what convention of consistency says. Now comes what are the implications of conventions of consistency. The very first is comparability. Comparability means it will help the stakeholders such as investors, creditors to compare their financial statement across the different periods. For example, suppose for charging depreciation, we have used method that is written down value method. Now what convention of consistency says that we should apply the same method over the different periods. हमें written down value, suppose मेरी asset की cost है suppose 10,000. So first year suppose the rate of depreciation is 10%. So first year my depreciation will be 1,000. So written down value becomes 9,000. Now convention of consistency says that I should not change the depreciation method for the next year. Again I will have to apply the written down value method, and as the rate of depreciation is 10%, next year depreciation will be 900 and written down value will be 80, 100 and so on. This is what convention of consistency says, right? एक बार जो हमने मेथड फॉलो कर लिया या प्रिंसिपल फॉलो कर लिया, इट शुड नॉट बी चेंज ओवर द पीरियड. सो इट विल हेल्प द स्टेक होल्डर्स एंड इन्वेस्टर्स टू कंपेयर. क्योंकि हमने चेंज नहीं करा मेथड, हम सेम मेथड्स को ओवर द पीरियड यूज कर रहे हैं, तो इन्वेस्टर्स को हेल्प मिलेगी कि वो अपनी फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स को कंपेयर कर सके ओवर द पीरियड और कंपनी की जो फाइनेंशियल हेल्थ है उसके बारे में ज़्यादा बेटर वे से उसको अंडरस्टैंड कर सके. नेक्स्ट इज द रिलायबिलिटी. नाउ जब हम कंसिस्टेंट मेथड्स फॉलो करेंगे तो हमारी जो फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स होंगी दैट विल बी मोर रिलायबल. नेक्स्ट implication is transparency. This means there will be no chances of manipulations. क्योंकि हम methods को consistently follow कर रहे हैं, तो जो financial statements को prepare कर रहे हैं उनके पास बहुत कम chances होंगे कि वो उनकी figures को manipulate कर सके. So it will ensure transparency in our financial statements. Next is the auditability. Consistency facilitates the auditing process because the auditors can rely on only consistent method. So it will assist in auditability of financial statements. The next is regulatory compliance. Many accounting standards like IFRSs, what they say is that we should follow all the principles consistently unless the change is necessary and that is to be disclosed appropriately in our financial statements. Now in the example, let's discuss that a company uses a FIFO method to determine the cost of the goods sold and the value of each and every inventory. Now it ensures that financial statements from year to year are comparable and provide a clear picture of the company's profitability and assets value. If we will use FIFO method over the period, it will help us in knowing the inventory in a better manner. Comparing the financial statements will ensure reliability and transparency in our financial statements. Next convention that we have is the convention of full disclosure. Now what convention of full disclosure says that each and every material information, important information, material here means important information, which is relevant to understanding of the financial statements is to be disclosed. So as the name is suggesting, what the name is saying, full disclosure. Full disclosure means nothing is to be hidden, everything is to be disclosed fully, राइट. सो ये कन्वेंशन क्या कहता है, ये एक प्रैक्टिस है कि हमें सारी रेलेवेंट इंफॉर्मेशन को फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स में डिस्क्लोज करना है, नथिंग इज टू बी हिडन. नाउ कम टू द इम्प्लीकेशंस ऑफ कन्वेंशन ऑफ फुल डिस्क्लोजर. द फर्स्ट वन इज ट्रांसपेरेंसी. जब हम सारी चीज़ें, सारी मटेरियल इंफॉर्मेशन को फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स में डिस्क्लोज करेंगे, सारे स्टेक होल्डर्स को इंफॉर्मेशन प्रोवाइड करेंगे, तो डेफिनेटली जो हमारी फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स होंगी दैट विल डिपेक्ट ट्रांसपेरेंसी, एंड गिविंग कंप्लीट पिक्चर will help the investors and stakeholders in taking various kind of decisions. And again, full disclosure also helps us in regulatory and legal compliance of standards, as our standard says that nothing is to be hidden, there should not be misleading information, there should not be concealment of facts. So full disclosure convention अपने आप में legal और regulatory compliance को ensure कर रहा है. And of course, if nothing is hidden, it will ensure trust and credibility among all the users of accounting information. Let's take an example to describe this convention of full disclosure. A company is preparing its annual financial statements for the year ending December 31st. And what financial disclosure will include? That we have to disclose all the accounting policies which are followed by the organization. Similarly, we have to show the contingent liabilities also. What do you mean by contingent liabilities? The liabilities which may or may not arise in future. वो liabilities जो हो सकता है future में हो या ना हो, लेकिन convention of full disclosure कहता है कि चाहे वो नहीं भी होगी, presently अगर उसके chances हैं, तो we have to disclose those liabilities in books of accounts by the way of footnotes. Similarly, if there are related party transactions, that is to be disclosed. क्योंकि अगर किसी का इंटरेस्ट है, रिलेटेड पार्टी इंटरेस्ट है फाइनेंशियल अकाउंट्स में या हमारी ट्रांजैक्शंस में, तो दैट इज टू बी डिस्क्लोज प्रॉपरली. And the last one is subsequent events. Subsequent events means that we have to disclose the events which, like for example, adjusting events that you say that there certain happen in the coming future which has affected our financial statements, that is to be disclosed in our financial statements. The effect for those transactions is to be considered for in our financial statements. So this is what convention of full disclosure says. Next is the convention of conservatism. Now what convention of conservatism says? As its name is suggesting, conservatism, there is a one line meaning for convention of conservatism, that is anticipate no profit but provide for all possible losses. अगर आपको profit हो रहा है, if you feel that there will be profit in the near future, you need not to anticipate that. But अगर आपको लग रहा है कि near future में कुछ losses होंगी, you have to provide for all those possible losses. You have to maintain provision for all those possible losses. This is what convention of conservatism says. Now what are the implications? The very first is the risk mitigation. This convention helps us to mitigate the risk, right? What kind of risk is to be mitigated? Like it will mitigate the risk of overstatement of assets as well as income which can mislead our users of accounting information. Second, it will ensure us financial stability. अगर हम convention of conservatism को follow करते हैं, हम conservatism की policies को follow करते हैं, this means हमने already एक कॉशियस अप्रोच को लिया हुआ है इन रिकॉग्नाइजिंग आवर इनकम्स एज वेल एज एसेट्स, इनकम एज वेल एज एसेट्स। तो दिस मीन्स हम अपनी एक तरह से फाइनेंशियल स्टेबिलिटी को इंश्योर कर रहे हैं अपनी फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स में ना। जब आप कन्वेंशन ऑफ कंजर्वेटिज्म फॉलो करोगे, डेफिनेटली जो इन्वेस्टर्स हैं उनका कॉन्फिडेंस बढ़ेगा आपकी फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स में। अगेन, conservatism will help us in enhancing the reliability and we can make comparison between the various companies properly if we follow this convention of conservatism, and it will ensure auditing as well as compliance also, because auditors also rely on conservatism process. Auditors तभी इस पे रिलाई करेंगे फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स पे अगर आपने प्रॉपर प्रोविजंस बनाए हैं, एंड ऑफ कोर्स दीज आर द रेगुलेटरी रिक्वायरमेंट्स ऑल्सो कि हमें जो भी डाउटफुल चीज़ें हैं, पॉसिबल लॉसेस हैं, उनके लिए प्रोविजनिंग करनी है अपनी फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स में। सो कन्वेंशन ऑफ कंजर्वेटिज्म एंश्योर ऑडिट एज वेल एज द कंप्लायंस ऑफ अकाउंटिंग रूल्स। Now let's discuss an example. A company hold a piece of equipment that originally cost 10,000. हमारे पास equipment है जिसकी original cost 10,000 है. But over the period इसकी जो market value है that has been declined to rupees 8,000. Now what the convention of conservatism says that we have, if there is a decrease in the value of asset, that is to be considered. This is a possible loss that in future the value of this particular equipment may fall, right? So we have to value the equipment in financial statements at rupees 8,000, and if we are doing this, we are presenting more cautious and realistic view of the financial position. Next is convention of materiality. Now, convention of materiality says that all the material information is to be disclosed in the financial statements. Now, question arises, what is materiality? Materiality is determined based on whether the information is large enough to make difference in decision making by the users of financial statements, right? So मटीरियलिटी से हमें ये कंसिडर हम करते हैं कि क्या जो इंफॉर्मेशन हम प्रोवाइड कर रहे हैं फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स में वो यूजर्स के लिए डिसीजन मेकिंग के लिए इम्पॉर्टेंट है, सफिशिएंट है, राइट? तो अगर वो इम्पॉर्टेंट है, सफिशिएंट है, तो वो सारी इंफॉर्मेशन हमें फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स में डिस्क्लोज करनी है। ये इसमें क्वांटिटेटिव इंफॉर्मेशन भी हो सकती है और क्वालिटेटिव इंफॉर्मेशन भी हो सकती है। सो वॉट एवर इट इज, ये बेसिकली डिपेंड करेगा ऑन द प्रोफेशनल जजमेंट ऑफ द person who is preparing financial statements. So he will make out whether that information is material or not. Here little bit relativity is applied, like for example there is a large scale organization. So for large scale organization, the information, suppose they have a turnover of turnover in crores of rupees. So for them maybe the information related to rupee 1,000 may not be material, but for a very small organization the information related to rupee 1,000 can be a material information. So it depends upon whether this particular information is important or not. So convention of materiality basically says that if it is an important or relevant information, then it should be disclosed in the financial statements, and if it is not, then it can be presented collectively in your financial statements. Now, what are the implications? It helps us in disclosure decisions, like कौन सी information हमें financial statement में disclose करनी है, कौन सी नहीं disclose करनी, वो decision लेने में हमें convention of materiality help करता है. Again, it will help us in financial reporting integrity. It will ensure कि हमारी financial statements true and fair view present कर रही हैं या नहीं. Similarly, there are many legal rules, aspects related to convention of materiality, and by following it, we are assuring that rules are properly followed. Again, it assists us in regulatory compliance also, that many of the convention, many of the IFRSs, they ensure that we have to provide all the relevant information in financial statements so that it present true and a fair view of the organization. And by presenting all the information, definitely we will gain investors' confidence. Now let's discuss an example. There is a large company whose reported revenue is of 10,000 crores. Now during the year, company discovers an error in its inventory valuation that results in overstatement of inventory by rupees 5,000. Now there are two aspects. One is quantitative, the other one is qualitative. Now if we compare this figure 5,000 with the overall revenue of the organization, which is of 10,000 crores, this figure is relatively small. So overstatement of inventory by rupees 5,000, it is not a much bigger. So we can take the decision not to consider it an important information in our financial statements. तो हम इसको ignore कर सकते हैं. But there is a qualitative consideration also. If by increasing this amount, by the overstatement of inventory by rupees 5,000 is affecting our key financial ratios, then it may be considered material, and despite its numerical size, it should be considered as a material information, and we have to correct our inventory to its true value. So this is what the convention of materiality is.